You're watching The Ready Writer, a show where I get to speak to writers of all different genres, mediums, and experiences. The Ready Writer. Are you ready? Hi, and welcome to another episode of The Ready Writer. Today, my guest is Janice Fletcher. Let's get this show started. So, starting off with the first question, were you a writer as a child? Was becoming a published author a goal of yours as a child, or was this something that happened later on in your journey?
Interestingly, when I was going to college, I told my mother, who was a literary snob. She was extremely well read and quite arrogant with her ability to write and so on, and her classics and whatever. And so when I would write something, she was a pretty hard critic. Excellent, but harsh. My husband is too. But I remember telling her early on in my college career, I want to be a writer. And I saw her expression. It was like, that was such a high hope, or she had such a high standard for that, but she was yet supportive. Well, great, or whatever. But I could feel that there's like, wow, that's pretty big. So it was within me. But it didn't come out until much later in my career. I had different articles and educational articles that I published and so on and so forth. And I was always a good storyteller. And people always wanted me to write down the stories that I told. So the storytelling, equates to the writing, the story of the writing as well. So yes, it was there.
Okay. All right, so let's first talk about your book, Teach with Spirit. What is it about, and why did you write it? What was your inspiration behind it?
This one is the successor to this one, which is Wisdom from the Inner Teacher.
Okay.
And I was an educator. Am an educator. Once you're an educator, you're always an educator. And my first book was about the aha moment, wisdom from the inner teacher, connecting to your innate wisdom or truth within, and how the 6 steps that it takes to open that up and listen to the epiphanies of the truth that's coming through you. And so Teach with Spirit became a handbook. And I was originally going to write it with a Montessori instructor, director of studies and so on. So there's a lot of Montessori influence in here. We ended up not doing it together. I just kept going. I was on a roll, and she was really busy. But it became more of a handbook of how to do it. So Teach with Spirit is a book that applies not only to teachers, but to anyone who is interested in accessing their inner wisdom, their inner truth. And so the 6 steps apply to everyone. The examples and the exercises are about education and about students and teaching and learning, but they just apply to everyone. So it's really a book for everyone that's interested in learning the 6-step process and enhancing their aha moments.
And going back to Wisdom from the Inner Spirit, then, being that that was the first book you wrote, well, prior to the Teach with Spirit, what did you experience in your life that caused you to write that book?
Well, the actual writing of the book came from an aha moment. The first question that you asked about me becoming a writer has been long coming, because I had to overcome the challenge that my mother presented with her literary excellence, right? I am not that. I am a casual writer. I am a storyteller. I am very approachable and so on. There's nothing literary or scholarly about what I write. So I had to first get beyond that. And then I had finished my career. I don't know. I was being a consultant, which many people do after they start, I was a consultant, so I had time. And as a consultant, it's always good to have a book, right, to consult about. So it was practical, which I am also very practical, as well as inspirational and easily inspired. And so I had to come forth. And each book that I have written has been a little more open, but they're both of them have been within the confines of the educator and what the teacher needs and what would be acceptable to a school system, and so on and so forth. So they have been written with an audience in mind. Like both of them, the stories apply to everyone, like I said, but they still are used in universities, are used in classrooms, are used by teachers. They're used as a book study for the faculty, where they'll buy the book for the whole faculty and they'll go through it chapter by chapter and study it as educators and so on. But it also, so it was for that audience. So now I forgot what your question was.
Well, the inspiration behind Wisdom from the Inner Spirit.
Yeah, from the inner teacher. So yes, it was inspired to get the 6 steps out there. The aha, how it happened, what the 6 steps are, came forth first within Wisdom from the Inner Teacher. And so then those 6 steps then apply to the rest of my writings. And those 6 steps of the aha moment became what I term optimal wisdom learning, which is what I present. It is how to learn optimally and how to gain wisdom. You can call it wisdom or insight or truth or God inspiration or whatever you want to call it, or the truth coming forth. So that was the basis of it. That was sort of the foundation of it.
Would it be usable for the parent who teaches from home and does not, or the student who does not go to school but is taught from home? Could they use the same information?
Yes, because it applies to everyone. The thing that we have to understand is every single person has aha moments all the time. We all do. It's not just in school by any means, right? That's just, and example after example is shown in the books, and we know them as well but most importantly, we've experienced them. You know, that moment where you're trying to figure out something and then the answer comes in days later or something like that. That's an aha moment. So whether you're learning 2 + 2 or what is the meaning of God, or you're just trying to figure out which house to buy, the process is the same of your mind and how it works, shutting down the mind, quieting it, and then allowing the truth to come forth. So, and true learning is that. It's not memorization of the mind, it is of the left brain. It is inspiration from the right brain, which is much wider and much more grand. So yes, it applies to everybody everywhere. So what parents would understand while they're working from home with their students and they're not trained as an educator, and they're working online with their students during this COVID time or whatever, is it's pacing. It's observation and pacing. The question to the student or the person is presented. This is what we're trying to learn. And then you allow time for it to process, to let's really think about that. Let's scan our mind. Let's go into our left brain and see everything that we know. Let's look at all that we have. It's like a computer. It is exactly like a computer, our left brain. It's all stored there. And so we look and see if we have the answer there. We can figure out the answer from the information in our left brain. If they can, then they'll get the answer and they move on. If they can't, then you pause and then you wait. And what will happen is sometimes you need to take a break from it. Sometimes you need to take a walk. Everybody has their different ways of the left brain quieting down, stillness coming in, and then truth coming forth. Some people, they get their ideas in the shower. Some people are walking the dog. But it will always be a time when your left brain is no longer working on the problem. When you quiet the left brain, then the right brain will come through. So for the parent that's trying to figure out how to teach their children, have some patience and allow them to think about it and then come back to it. And come back to the question and see whether or not it's come in, or talk about that same question at dinner, or when you're playing with a dog, or whatever you're doing, and then see if the answer can come through there. So learning is not just about when we're sitting there staring at the computer or sitting at our desk or whatever. It's much more broad than that. Make it part of how the mind is opening and learning. Okay. So yes,
So you mentioned that you had a mindset that you couldn't write a book because your mother, you didn't feel like you were this equal to your mother. So you, at some point, obviously overcame that. Did you do anything mentally or emotionally, or how did you overcome that mindset that it's okay for you to write a book?
It's part of my whole evolvement as a person, because nothing is separate. We're holistic beings. And so as I have followed a spiritual journey, or I've been on a spiritual journey my whole life, but basically since I was 16. And so as I've evolved, I have become more confident and more sure about what truth is, and not shy anymore about what to say and how to say it. And also, it doesn't matter if it's accepted or not. That's really important. So there's no expectation and no judgment about it. Interestingly, the two first books, had a bit of an expectation because they were written with the purpose of providing a supplement to teachers that could be broadened beyond that. But each one was like, just for the sake of writing it. It's my truth that has been written down. And if people are interested in reading it, then they will. And if they get anything out of it, great, because they contain nuggets of wisdom and truth. So I think just the natural evolution of myself as a soul and as a human being allowed me to be more confident to go forth with it.
And how did you begin your process of publishing? I always ask authors this because every road is different. There's a lot of jobs out there. Real estate agent, it's the same thing. You got to go to school, pass the test, real estate agent. Police officer, go to the academy, pass the test. But authors, there really is no one road to becoming an author. So what was your road like, your experience?
Well, I had my husband, who is an excellent writer, to be my example that I followed. He wrote many novels and screenplays and worked for decades on trying to get published in the big arena, of a major fiction thriller novel and screenplay, taking it all the way to Hollywood, to almost getting there, and so on and so forth. And the contests that he would win, and the editors that he would hire. And so he was always the forefront of that. And again, he, to me, is a real writer. My writing is very meaningful and inspirational, but it isn't, it just is casual. It's just like me talking to you right now. That's what my writing is. My writing is just a casual conversation that doesn't have the structure or the confines of how a screenplay is written and so on and so forth. But nonetheless, his process allowed me to be by his side. I was his editor. He was mine. He's, really, really strong and a harsh editor, but very much worth it. And we enjoyed a great deal of our writing together. It's always part of our life when he was writing about the characters and the plot and what's going to happen and so on and so forth. So that influenced me a great deal. And rather than following the same road he followed in terms of the stack of rejection letters that he had from every publisher, the stack of rejections that he had from all the different agents, when that was how it was done. I didn't have that desire to make it big at the very beginning. I just wanted to have a book in hand. So I did the first one is self-published through Amazon. And that makes it, of course, everybody's doing that now, and that's very easy. The second one, I went to a friend who has that is a publisher, and she helped edit it. And she also then used Amazon to, what's it called? Kindle now? It's called Kindle.
Yeah, KDP.
Yeah, KDP. But that was her avenue, but I've used her publishing house that she does to do the second one. And the third one, I have no idea.
Well, with that said, your third one you're working on is Aha Moments. How did that come to you, and how is it coming?
Well, it's interesting because I just recently have claimed it as a book, because right now we're doing this interview on December 10th, 2020. It's been a heck of a year, right? In March, when we all went into COVID isolation or whatever, and AHA came through, that, what do we do with all of our time? And sitting at home, not going anywhere, not seeing anybody, it's all very purposeful. Whether or not you used it purposefully or not, it was, a gift of time. And again, what kept running through my mind is the continued requests of when I tell a story that goes on and on and on and on, and everybody loves the story. Please write it down. You know, I've been told that my whole life. Please write down your story so I can hear it again. So I thought, well, I'm just going to write down the stories that people like. So I started writing down the stories that I've told over and over and over, and they became a structure to it, and then they became a chapter, and each chapter would have 5 stories or so, and it had like the beginning of the story and then the end, and then, you know, I kept going, and then there was a chapter on, you know, because I have a story about when I swam with a dolphin and the spiritual significance of that, and I have a story of how we found this house that we're in and the magical moments that took place for us to find it. And so all my magical moments of life. I mean, I haven't even figured out the title, but I do know that it has magical moments of life is really what it's about. And it incorporates my spiritual beliefs as well as the aha moments that have taken place throughout those magical moments. So it's an incorporation of all that I've done as an educator, as a writer, and as a spiritual seeker thus far, and my perspective of it. You know, when this bad thing happened, this is what I learned from it, and so on. It's sort of like a life lessons kind of thing, because it just started as a journal, right? And that's why I have the name right now as the Aha Moment Journal. I have no idea what will happen. And for months there was, no, this isn't a book, I'm just writing. You know, I don't know why I'm writing, I'm just writing. And because I write sort of, you know, in the structure of a story and a story and a story within a chapter, it became looking more like a book. And luckily my husband has been able to edit and read them, which has been very, very sweet of him to do that. And so just a couple of months ago or something, it's like, no, I guess this is a book. You know, it came through, this is a book, and I have no audience for it. I have no purpose for it. I have no agenda for it. I have no connection to do anything with it. I'm just writing. So, you know, it's a whole different kind of writing, because with this, whatever it will become, like magical life moments or aha moments or whatever, I have no restrictions at all, because I've always been in some sort of confines of what it should be. You know, I'm writing my dissertation. These are the specific things you have to do. Writing you know, an article that will be published in a journal, you have to, you know, whatever. This I'm just writing. And even when I wrote my other 2 books, I wanted to talk about God. And I was told over and over repetitively by everywhere that if you even put in the word God, you know, you will deter many people from your audience, you know. And it was like, you know, so in the Teach with Spirit book, I refer to God as the One, because that was the most general term I could use that would convey, you know, God to me. So now in these writings, I don't have anybody telling me what I can do and can't do. So it's also, maybe it's just therapeutic, because I've been writing the deepest, darkest secrets of my life. You know, I've been telling things that I haven't told anybody. So it really is, it is a journal that it's coming forth, and I don't know where it'll go.
Well, I do like that title, The Magical Moments of Life. It sounds interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
It sounds interesting. So my last question for you today is, if you had the chance to meet an author, whether they be dead or alive, who would that author be, and what would your conversation be like?
Wow. The one that comes to mind is The Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
To me, that story contains all the elements of who I am. It tells the spiritual story of, you know, seeking, to me, the way I interpret it, seeking God, realizing that you're looking for something that's there all the time. So the story itself fits completely with my spiritual philosophy that, you know, God is within us and we are God and you don't have to go anywhere, and so on and so forth, which is what Dorothy found out. And then in addition to that, it was written in such a magical way. You know, it was just such a journey, such a beautiful journey that the got to go on through the, you know, search from the tornado through the finding the wizard, and it was just magical and wonderful to all ages. Very compelling and enchanting. So I would ask about, you know, I don't know, the conversation would just be about the story, and the conversation would take place on that, because there's so many perspectives on the story of the Wizard of Oz. I would be most interested about the spiritual intent of it, so that would be probably who I'd like to speak to.
Optimal Wisdom Learning, FOW, includes 2 books of spirituality, philosophy, and practical application of strategies and tools. Teach with Spirit, the teacher's inward journey guide and wisdom from the inner teacher, turning ahas into now moments, guide us to reach deep within to identify and embrace spirit as we fulfill their calling to teach or enhance intuition.
Well, that's all for today's episode of The Ready Writer. I want to thank our guest, Janice Fletcher, for stopping on by and sharing her story and journey with us. And of course, to you, the audience, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and to share. Thank you so much for doing so. Have a great day.